You were in bed for 8 hours. But that doesn't mean you got 8 hours of sleep. During the night, the brain may have briefly surfaced from sleep many times, and by morning, you won't recall a single awakening. So the clock shows the right number. But your body tells a different story. Your body feels heavy, your mind feels sluggish, and your first real thought sounds like this: I need to sleep. 8 hours between lights out and the alarm is only time in bed. Inside that window, a very different story could have unfolded. Sleep isn't a smooth, dark line. Over a night, the brain passes through different stages several times. In lighter sleep, you're easier to wake. In deep, slow-wave sleep, the activity of large brain networks shifts, and the response to the outside world drops. Then comes rapid eye movement sleep, when brain activity takes on a different pattern. And vivid dreams appear especially often. These stages form repeating cycles, but they don't follow a stopwatch. Their length and balance change over the night and depend on age, prior sleep debt, alcohol, medications, illness, and many other factors. And here the number 8 finally loses its power. It says nothing about how many times sleep was broken, or what stage of sleep your brain was in when the alarm went off. Now imagine the alarm yanks the brain out of deep sleep. You're already awake, but some systems haven't switched to full daytime mode. Sleep inertia sets in. Attention reaction time and decision-making remain temporarily impaired. It usually fades, but after sleep deprivation or waking at an unfavorable point in the sleep cycle, it can feel especially intense. Hence a popular trap. A person wakes up exhausted and assumes they must need several more hours of sleep. Sometimes the problem really is duration, but sometimes the person feels noticeably better after 20 or 30 minutes. Part of what they felt came from the transition between sleep and wakefulness, rather than from general fatigue alone. There's a deeper reason too. Your sleep is governed not only by the built-up need to rest. At the same time, the circadian system is at work, an internal clock tied to the alternation of the light and dark. It helps regulate sleepiness, body temperature, hormone release, and the time when it's easier for the brain to stay awake. If you rise at a different time each day, get bright light late, and try to go to bed while your internal clock is still promoting wakefulness, you can spend plenty of time in bed, yet remain out of sync with your biological clock both at night and in the morning. That's why one of the strongest signals for your rhythm comes after waking. Morning daylight and a fairly regular wake-up help the internal clock get a predictable start to the day. We'll return to this mechanism in detail in the season finale, but even a well-aligned internal clock can't protect sleep if the night is repeatedly fragmented. You remember some awakenings. Others may be so brief that by morning you think, I slept straight through. Noise, heat, pain, alcohol, leg movements, breathing problems, all of it can fragment the night. Alcohol is especially deceptive. It can help you fall asleep faster, which makes it seem helpful. But later sleep can become more fragmented. The person spent the right amount of time in bed, yet the restorative architecture of their sleep may still have changed. Another cause hides in breathing. In obstructive sleep apnea, the upper airway repeatedly narrows or closes during sleep. The body has to briefly rouse the brain to restore breathing. The person themselves may not remember it, but in the morning, they may wake with a dry mouth, a headache, or the feeling that sleep did nothing for them. Loud snoring doesn't prove apnea, but snoring with breathing pauses, choking, and marked daytime sleepiness is a serious reason to get evaluated. What can you do without trying to diagnose yourself from one video? Start with 7 days of observation, not with buying supplements. Pick a realistic, fairly constant wake-up time. After waking, try to get daylight. Record when you last consumed caffeine, whether you drank alcohol, how long you think it took you to fall asleep, and how many awakenings you remember. In the morning, rate your state from 1 to 10. Not in the first second after the alarm, but again half an hour later. That way you separate 3 different things. How much time was set aside for sleep? How uninterrupted the night was? And how hard the transition to waking turned out to be. If you want to shift your schedule, you don't have to try to go to bed 3 hours earlier in one heroic night. The internal clock usually handles gradual, consistent changes better, supported by consistent light exposure and wake-up timing. and don't turn the tracker on your wrist into a judge. Consumer devices can be useful for watching your rhythm and trends, but they don't measure sleep stages with lab precision, and they don't diagnose. If the watch declared the night bad while you feel fine, don't let one number create unnecessary anxiety. The main criterion isn't a pretty graph, but how you feel and function by day. But if you regularly set aside enough time, yet continue waking up exhausted for weeks, if you fall asleep at the wheel or at work, if loved ones notice pauses in your breathing, if insomnia repeats almost every night, this is no longer a task for one more morning life hack. The cause should be investigated with a healthcare professional. There's one more trap: trying to make up for the entire week in one long night. After several short nights during the week, a person sleeps until noon on the weekend and may genuinely feel some relief. Extra sleep helps reduce part of the built-up need, but a sharp change in wake-up time shifts light, food, and activity all at once. On Sunday evening, sleep doesn't come, and Monday starts again like a flight across several time zones. This is called social jet lag. The internal clock gets one schedule on workdays and another on weekends. The fix isn't a ban on recovery sleep. What matters more is not putting your body through the equivalent of 2 different time zones every week. Individual needs differ too. Some adults really need more sleep, others a bit less. Age, illness, physical load, and built-up sleep debt change the picture. So the magic number 8 doesn't separate a healthy person from an unhealthy one. But there's a useful question. If for several days in a row, you can sleep without an alarm, does your sleep duration gradually stabilize, and do you begin to feel better? If the body regularly demands much more time and still doesn't recover, that's information, not laziness. It's also important to tell tiredness from sleepiness. You can wake with no urge to fall asleep again, yet feel a lack of motivation and strength. And the reverse, a person may think they're just lazy, though in fact they doze off in a meeting. The second case matters especially for safety. Check not only your morning. Do you notice yourself nodding off while reading, at a screen, in the passenger seat? Do you need constant stimulation to stay awake? Have you ever struggled to stay alert while driving? Such sleepiness says more than an app's rating of 1 night. And finally, good sleep hygiene creates conditions, but doesn't cure every disorder. A quiet dark room won't open the airway in apnea and won't remove a drug's effect. So a person shouldn't blame themselves if they followed the popular advice and the problem remained. 8 hours is a useful guide, but not a warranty card. Sleep isn't an empty gap between 2 alarms. It's a sequence of states, one that needs time, relative continuity, and alignment with the internal clock. So fixing the next night sometimes starts in the morning, with a steady wake-up, daylight, and honest attention to what happened before sleep. But once morning has come, most people reach for a faster tool. They pour a cup of coffee, and within minutes feel as if energy has returned. In the next episode, we'll find out where it came from, and why one day coffee stops working. Subscribe to Biocode Lab, where the complex becomes simple.